Good evening. Hey, y'all. Thanks so much for being patient tonight. We have lots of people trying to get in their seats, so we appreciate you had to wait a little bit, but thanks for understanding. Well, welcome to the second night of the 16th Annual Savannah Book Festival. Yeah, woo. I'm Rachel Young-Fields. I'm a fellow book lover and president of the Savannah Book Festival Board of Directors. So how many of you were here with us last night for our opening address with George Dawes Green, right? It was fantastic. So we're off to a good start. Well, tonight we're in for another great night with an address from Douglas, Preston, and Lincoln Child. Yeah, I'll let whoever's the woohoo person, I like it. Thanks to the generosity of our presenting sponsors, the Philip E. and Nancy B. Beekman Foundation, David and Nancy Centron, Robert Faircloth, the Courtney Knight Gaines Foundation, the Gerald D. and Helen M. Stevens Foundation, and through a generous grant from Georgia Humanities. We truly appreciate your dedication and support of the festival. We're also grateful to Ms. Mara Savchin for sponsoring our keynote speaker. Thanks, Mara. I also want to say thank you to our other sponsors who, fortunately for us, are too numerous to thank individually, but are identified in your program. Your support is crucial to our success at SBF, and we don't ever forget that. Nearly 90% of the festival's income is from sponsorships and donations, so these wonderful folks really are the reason that we can be together this weekend for another incredible festival. If you're not already a sponsor of SBF, please consider giving today. You can use the QR code on the back of your program to donate through Venmo, and you can check out SBF's website for opportunities to become a Literati member or a sponsor. We also have an incredible network of people who volunteer their time to SBF. Tonight, your ushers are some of the approximately 200 SBF volunteers who will make this festival weekend happen. Please join me in giving a round of applause for members of the Overbooked Book Club and the Nonfiction Book Club. If you're interested in getting involved with SBF, please check out our website for information on how you can volunteer. Yesterday and today, 31 authors participated in SBF at schools. These festival authors arrived early to visit public and private middle and high schools and universities in our community, giving Savannah students a chance to learn about the life of a writer and the art of creating a story. Thank you to those authors who took part in SBF at schools. Okay, have I thanked everyone? Not yet. I haven't thanked 3 women who have put in countless hours to make the festival happen. On behalf of the SBF Board of Directors, I'd like to express my gratitude to the festival's talented and dedicated staff, Kimberly Green-Engel, Mickey McNamara, and last but certainly not least, the festival's executive director, Tara Setter. Right? They're just doing an amazing job. We're very fortunate. So we hope you'll join us tomorrow for Festival Saturday, when more than 40 authors will be presenting at venues around Telfair, Wright, and Chippewa Squares. It looks like we're going to be cool and sunny. If you need help planning your Festival Saturday strategy, make sure to download the Savannah Book Festival app. And if anyone suggests to you that you do something else tomorrow, let them know your schedule is already fully booked. Thank you, I'll be here all weekend. A few final notes before we begin. We ask that you do not use flash photography, and please take a moment to turn off or silence your cell phones. Douglas and Lincoln will be answering questions following the presentation, and then we'll be signing festival-purchased copies of books. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce to you friend of the festival, Chris Hummer. Chris is a content producer in Savannah who has masterfully interviewed many authors for SBF over the years. Chris's love of writing and storytelling shows, and we're glad she's here tonight to introduce our keynote speakers. Please welcome Chris Hummer.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank her for that wonderful introduction that makes me sound way more talented and interesting than I actually am. So tonight we're here to spend time with two best-selling authors who collaborate in a very unique way. Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child co-write novels. As someone who writes, which is normally a pretty singular activity, I find that very fascinating. When I had the pleasure last year of interviewing both gentlemen for the Savannah Book Festival, I asked how that works. Do they come together to make an outline for their books and then alternate chapters? Do they ever disagree on what the other writes? I'm happy to say they have figured out the perfect writing arrangement to ensure dozens of bestsellers. Another question I asked was, how does a friendship survive such a demanding working relationship? And the answer to that, these gentlemen not only have mutual respect for each other's talents and creativity, they have a healthy sense of humor about it all. While their technical thrillers involve intensive research before the first word is put to the page, they approach each book with the goal of giving their dedicated readers what they want: amazing mysteries and dynamic characters. If you've not taken a spin around their website, PrestonChild.com, I encourage you to do that. Not only will you get great insight into their working relationship, but you'll also discover that wry sense of humor they share. And until you can do that, I am happy to welcome both Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child to the 2023 Savannah Book Festival. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Greetings. Wait, where are you going? Like, he's a little shy. Get back out here. There you go. There.
You'll be nice to us, right? Promise? Even you, Andrew?
There you are, Link.
I don't usually wear this cane, but I was walking last night in the Garden of Good and Evil around midnight. I stepped in something I shouldn't have. But in all honesty, we're delighted to see so many people out here to see us, and I'm feeling a bit of imposter syndrome here. Are you sure you're really here not to see Stephen King? Is it really Preston Child? Is it really yes you want to see? Hear it, hear it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for coming. We love the Savannah Book Festival. This is our third appearance, and we've been to a lot of book festivals, and this is definitely one of the very best in the country in one of the most interesting small cities in America. So,
thank you.
So
we're going to talk about the things that we believe interest our readers the most. And if we miss anything, and we probably will, we're welcome to answer any questions when we're done.
Very good.
Take it away.
Well, thank you very much. So the story of how we met is kind of strange. And it's a little, and I thought it's a good time to, begin our little keynote address by describing how we met. Now, I was a young editor at the Museum of Natural History in New York, and I was sitting at my desk and I got a phone call from a very distinguished sounding person who identified himself as a senior editor at St. Martin's Press, and wondered, would I care to have lunch with him at the Russian Tea Room, which is one of the most expensive restaurants in New York City, to discuss a book. And I said, absolutely. And so I rushed down to the Salvation Army and got myself a jacket so I could get into the Russian Tea Room. And when I went in there, I'm looking for this gray-haired, distinguished editor that I'd spoken to, but the only person who seemed to be interested in me was this kid sitting in the worst table in the house, in the back, waving at me. And that was Lincoln. He was a rising young star at St. Martin's Press, already a senior editor at the age of 23. And so he proposed that
Genius, really.
He proposed that I should write a nonfiction book about the museum called Dinosaurs in the Attic, which I did. How many of you have read that book? Not enough hands. Oh, come on. Anyway, it's still available.
Doug, it was poorly edited. That's why nobody knows about it.
There was a review of the book that said, this is a lovely book, a beautiful book. There are a couple of corny passages in it, and they picked one out. It was one that he put in.
Lies, all lies.
Anyway.
Okay, pick it up.
All right, okay, pick it up. So I wrote this book, Dinosaurs in the Attic, and it was published. And then Lincoln came to me and said, Doug, I just did you a huge favor. You got your first book published. Now you're going to do me a favor. I want a tour of the backstage of the museum. I want to see the dinosaur bone storage room. I want to see where the beetles eat the meat off skeletons. I want to see all the stuff that you write about. And I said, Lincoln, I can't show you those things. I'm just a lowly museum employee. Lincoln kept insisting, and finally I said, okay, I think we can pull this off if I give you a tour late at night after the museum's closed and there's just the night guards, and we won't be bothered, and we'll be able to go into some of these areas. And I did have a key. In the old days when the museum had bad security, I had a key that opened a whole bunch of doors. So I gave Link a tour of the museum. I'm going to turn it over to him because he's going to describe this tour.
I have been a fan of the museum for many years. I've taken all the backstage tours that the usual members take, but those are just, they whet your appetite and nothing else. I mean, you take a tour behind the scenes and you can see a tarp, and behind the tarp you see the pith helmet of Indiana Jones, when he's not desecrating a tomb or something. But they don't take you back to the really fun stuff. So I talked Doug into taking me late at night, which is the only time he could get away with it. And so I had the tour of my life. I saw everything I hoped to see and more. I saw the whale eyeball room, these huge whale eyeballs kept in alcohol, which tasted really sour, by the way. And the dinosaur bone skeleton room, which is so heavy that it has to be in the basement because otherwise the weight of the bones would collapse the floor. And then the domestic beetle room that he mentioned, which is the place where they keep carnivorous beetles. So if you have a skeleton of a mammal or your ex-spouse or something you need to get rid of, you dump it in there and these things will eat everything off and leave a perfectly articulated skeleton. And if you leave it in too long, they eat the bones too. So at the end, we ended up it was like a movie set. We ended up on the 4th floor in what was called the Hall of Cretaceous Dinosaurs back then. And there was lightning outside, and the clerestory windows were you could see them flickering with lightning and thunder. And the T-Rex skeleton's mandible was right overhead. And Doug had sent me a proposal for a mystery novel
that he rejected.
It sucked.
He rejected
okay?
it.
Yeah, it was terrible. But I turned to him at this point and I said, Doug, mysteries are a dime a dozen, but what if we were to write together with a thriller, a techno thriller set in the museum, and that could be our own joint project. And it was at that moment that a guard walked in. And Doug could finish the story.
Yeah, this is a true story. It was, first of all the lights were turned off in the dinosaur hall except for this strip of fluorescent lighting, so it was really dark. And the guard couldn't see us, but he could hear us talking loudly about this book we were going to write, which, by the way, became Relic. And he was standing in the doorway, and I swear his knees were knocking together. He was at this big flashlight, he's shining it in. Who's there? Who's there? Show yourselves. And I thought, oh my God, I am in trouble now. I'm an employee, I'm going to be fired. This is terrible, terrible violation of their security. And Lincoln said, Doug, let me handle this. I said, please. So Lincoln said, thank God. Thank God you found us. Why, we've been wandering around this museum for, this is crazy. How do you get out of here? And the guard said, but it's 1 o'clock in the morning. The museum closed at 5. Don't we know it? Oh my God. This place is, so the guard was completely taken in. He escorted us out through the security exit. He never asked for my ID or Link's ID. I mean, we could have had a T-Rex in our pocket, and, But anyway, so I
do as it happens.
When that happened, I thought, okay, this guy is a good man to have as a partner. And so we started writing Relic together. And it turned out he was not that good. But anyway, no.
Just for that, now you get to tell them about the origin of Pendergast, our major character. Thank you, please. Yeah.
Actually, before I do that, I'm going to tell a little tiny anecdote, because Lincoln brought up the taste of alcohol with the whale eyeball collection.
Wait 1 second.
No, yes, it's very embarrassing to you. No, it isn't. No. Lincoln's worried I might reveal. Don't worry, Lincoln, we're not going to talk about your criminal record. No, this is a true story. The museum, they don't use formaldehyde anymore to preserve specimens. They use pure ethyl alcohol, which is the drinking alcohol, 200 proof. And they had these huge Jeroboams of this alcohol in various departments of the museum. And the night guards were drinking the alcohol. And it was a disaster. And they put like poison and skull and crossbones on it, and it didn't work. But finally, there was a little old lady named Alice Gray who worked in the insect department. And they had a whole bunch of extra tarantulas that were, preserved. And she said, well, here's the solution. And they put a tarantula in the bottom of each Jeroboam. It's glass, you could see into it. And you could see the tarantula sitting there on the bottom. And the alcohol wasn't drunk anymore. That's a true story.
Actually, what happened was the next day the tarantulas were all smiling and the alcohol was halfway down. I look forward to seeing you at cocktails afterwards, by the way.
So how did we create Pendergast? Well, Lincoln had been my editor for Dinosaurs in the Attic, so he expected me to write the first chapters of Relic. And we talked about what were going to be in the chapters, but we were a little vague about the characters. So I wrote the first 2 chapters, and I sent them to Link, and Lincoln called me and he said, Doug, these are wonderful, these are great, I love these chapters, and I was glowing with pleasure. And then he said, but there's a little problem. And I said, what? He said, well, you've got these 2 cops. You've got this Irish-American cop, and you got this Italian-American cop, and they're really, Doug, they're the same character. They need to be folded together, and then we need a detective, a totally original detective, a person that no one has ever thought of before or seen. And by this time, I was really pissed off. And I said very sarcastically, oh yeah, like what we need is an albino from New Orleans. And Lincoln said, I think we can work with that. Let's riff on that. Yeah. So, and we started talking, and he's not albino, but he's just very pale. And then Link said, or I said, let's give him a black suit so that the contrast is striking, and make him very tall and cadaverous looking. And then one of us said, oh yeah, and when he's at a crime scene, he's often mistaken for the coroner, And we started riffing on this guy, and in about 15 minutes, Pendergast was standing in front of us, fully formed, like Athena out of the forehead of Zeus. It was amazing, and it just took over. But
Thank you on behalf of Agent Pendergast. The funny thing about Pendergast was Doug and I wrote Relic, and then we wrote a sequel to it, mostly because we thought we could make some money off of a sequel, more than the fact that Pendergast was in it. And then we let him lie fallow for 5 or 6 books until we realized that he was our golden goose. And he came back with Cabinet of Curiosities, and after that it was a run from there, and we never looked back. And everybody loved Pendergast. They write short stories about him, and we know better now than to do anything. Early on, we were thinking about, we often think about which character to kill off in a book, because we want to kill off at least one decent character so people know we're not messing around, and we thought about killing him off, but we wouldn't be up here right now if that had happened. You'd see us tomorrow, one of the, so we never killed him off, but what we didn't know was that the movie of Relic would keep him prisoner forever from us, and would rob us of Netflix and HBO and Paramount, not Paramount, Warner Brothers, and houses in Saint-Tropez and yachts, and we need to tell this story because it is a cri de coeur, really, and I'll let Doug do it very briefly.
Well, after we finished the manuscript, we turned it into our publisher, and we had an agent in Hollywood who sent it out, and immediately they sold it to Paramount Pictures. And I was really broke. I was so broke. I was living in New Mexico. I'd quit my job in New York. I'd run through all my savings trying to make a living as a writer. And they offered us what I thought was a lot of money, $350,000. Boy, I wish I could give that money back to them. Anyway, so they made this movie called The Relic, and I don't know, how many of you seen the movie? See, yeah. All right, do you like the film, or? Yes, sir. Oh, all right.
Give that man a cigar.
All right. Whoa. No, when the movie was about to come out, our agent called us up, and he said, "Have you read paragraph 562 of your movie contract," which is like the Bible, it's huge. We said, no. He said, "Well, you better read that paragraph." I said, "I don't want to read it. What does it say?" He said, "All right, I'll paraphrase it for you. It says, if you criticize this movie, even in casual conversation, not only do you have to give back the money that they paid you, but you are liable for the entire cost of the film, which is $50 million, plus all the costs of promotion, which is another $50 million. So when people ask us what we think of the film, we love the movie. Oh, so good. They cut Pendergast out of the script. And we got, 5 or 6 scripts, one after another. And in each script, Pendergast was less and less until finally he was gone.
Yeah, not too long. Okay, keep going.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they cut him out. And that was 27 years ago. And they have done nothing with that character. They own the character rights. We've published 21 Pendergast novels, each one of which has been a New York Times bestseller in the top 5. And they tell us over and over again that they have no interest whatsoever, ever, in doing anything with Pendergast, the character. It gets worse. What is that, some kind of app? Look at this. Turn that on.
Act 2, go ahead. So
on the basis of that, our WME, which is our agency up in Hollywood, went and they called Paramount. They said, "Are you never ever going to do anything?" No interest whatsoever, nothing, never, So they then went out and immediately there was all this interest. Netflix, Hulu, Apple, wanted to do a series based on Pendergast. And we got a wonderful deal, over $1 million deal with a production company, Warner, which does shows for HBO. Don't play that violin.
Hurry it up.
And then Warner's legal department sent a letter to our agents saying, we own that character and we'll sue you if you do anything with it.
In the most threatening terms, too.
Oh, it was a really nasty. And then they contacted Paramount again and said, "But you said you don't have any interest. Are you planning something?" "No, we have no interest in it. But you can't do anything either." I mean, Paramount's like a toothless dog with a bone. He can't chew it, but when you try to take it away, he growls at you. Anyway, so we were thinking if we were still in the final stages of trying to work something out with Paramount, and we offered to give them back the money, whatever. They're just mean people.
And by the way, if there are any toothless dogs out there, we didn't mean to trigger you or anything like that. Don't take offense.
Yeah. So anyway, so maybe we're going to start a campaign, Free Pendergast, and maybe we should start it right here in Savannah, Georgia. All right, here we go.
It's the only thing that's going to work, believe me. We've looked very, very carefully. Another question that we're asked probably the most often is, how in the hell did two people write a novel together? And it's a fair question to ask because when we started out, and we started writing it in the late 80s, there were no novels written by two people except by, I think, one mystery series by a couple of people in Sweden or something. And in fact, when we first published our first book in England, they called us Lincoln Preston because they were afraid nobody would buy the books written by, a novel by two people. So what we do is Doug and I will, this is how it's been an organic process, but this is how it's done now. Doug and I will talk about the next 10 and 12 chapters. We don't want to go too far ahead. We want to leave some room for leeway or new ideas, brainstorms. And then we'll assign the chapters to each other. And then we will each go off into our monk's cell and write our chapters. And then we pass them back and forth. And at that point, the gnashing of teeth and the rending of garments begins because Doug doesn't like what I wrote, and I don't like what he wrote either. And so there's a lot of arguing and back and forth. And finally, our editor steals it away from us, and that's the end of it. Now, that was true 10 years ago, but the fact is that we've written books on our own now, lots of novels, solo novels, and we've learned the hard way that writing is a really lonely business, and it's a lot easier and a lot more fun to write with somebody who you respect and you like. And Doug and I are lucky to have met each other that way because our minds sync in very similar ways. Not in every way, I'm glad to say, but in most ways they do. And so we work very well together, and when we argue, it's like an old married couple. And the sex is terrible too, but that's a story for another day.
Well, it is true. The painful part is when I give Link this beautiful, polished prose.
You want the violin again?
Yeah, bring it out. And he rewrites it. It's so painful to see what he does to my deathless prose. But of course, I have to really fix what he does. It's just, No, it's actually, when Lincoln says to me, Doug, this chapter you've written or this character or whatever is terrible. Of course, I'm very angry, but then I cool off because I realize, that's why I have him as a writing partner, because I have to trust his judgment and he trusts my judgment. And I think in the end, the books are better for that because we, don't let each other get away with anything. or as Faulkner said, you have to massacre your little darlings in writing. Well, I massacre his darlings and he massacres mine, and that works out all right.
Another thing that works out really well is people ask us, do you write to your strengths? And that's true. Doug writes a lot about science. He's a real polymath, and I write more about computers or about supernatural. But also, we have very different personalities. And Doug is gung-ho about any adventure he can take. We wrote a book a few years ago called Gideon's Sword, and we had an idea that the end of the book would take place on Hart Island, which is this island in New York Harbor where they bury indigent people and people who have no one to claim their bodies, and they use the inmates from Rikers Island to bury them. And there are signs all around the island saying, don't land, you'll be arrested, this is dangerous, stay away, police. And Doug said to me, we need to research this place. You want to go there with me? And I said, hell no, I'm not going over there. I'm sick, I've got strep throat. So he got his wife to go with him. And they were taking pictures, the whole, they actually took a boat from City Island, went over there.
Rented a little fishing boat.
Wait a minute, let me tell your story.
All
They
right.
didn't come and they actually got pictures of the convicts, burying the bodies, and then they got seen by a bunch of sheriffs, and they came chasing after them, and they hid, and Doug said to Christine, his wife, we'd better give up. So after a long and threatening conversation where they called in all kinds of supervisors, they said, we're not going to arrest you, we'll let you go, but you have to erase every picture. And
because my wife is a photographer,
yes,
and she had this big Nikon camera where she'd been taking pictures.
And so they
Digital
stood
camera.
over her shoulders while she erased every single picture. And then they went back to the boat, and the sheriffs waited until they were actually out in the harbor. And by this point, Doug was really upset. I mean, he had his scoop, for our publicity, but he had no pictures. And Christine said, well, Doug, why are you so down? And Doug said, you didn't get any pictures. And she said, the hell I didn't erase anything. They're still here. In fact, I took more walking back to the boat. So
She was taking pictures while she was pretending to delete them. She was taking pictures of these guys, and you can see those pictures on our website if you go to the Gideon Sword book page, and you'll see those pictures of Hart Island. But it was funny. We were out in the middle of the harbor, and I had my cell phone, and I said, I'm going to call Lincoln. So I called him up, and I said, hey, Link, because he knew we were going to the island that day. I said, hey, Link, listen,
remember?
They gave me one phone call. I'm calling from the Bronx jail, because City Island, where we'd rented this boat, telling them we were going to go fishing, is in the Bronx. I said, can you come and bail us out? And Link was like, no, oh my God, I knew this was going to happen. This is terrible. Did you give them my name? Well, we had to give them your name. Oh, no, I can't. I've never seen him so upset. I realized then, what kind of a partner is this? The first question was, did you give them my name?
I'm a wuss, and I'm proud of it. What can I say? But one other smart thing Doug did, I don't want to dwell on this issue because there are a million stories we could tell you, is he had the foresight to bring along this map. And he said, I'm from Maine, officer. He brought out his Maine license plate and said, I was on Canal Street, and I bought this treasure map that they were selling down there for $1. And, it said to go here, and, he played the dumb tourist perfectly. So they took pity on him, and what did they get back? They got their pictures on our website, probably the most.
Yeah, Lincoln didn't want me to post those pictures, but I did, and nothing's happened so far.
Don't you see that process server over there, Doug?
So anyway, yeah, so we have a lot of adventures writing our books. Now, how many of you have read Bloodless? Okay. I think we owe you an apology for what happened to the beautiful city of Savannah in Bloodless. That was our previous book. before this one, the Cabinet of Dr. Lang. I don't want to spoil anything, so we won't say anything more, but I just want to defend ourselves by saying that, people, like a thriller, right? People are always accusing us. How could you kill that dog? How could you do that? Do you hate dogs? And, I mean, never mind that we killed and beheaded 23 people in the book, but Lincoln and I write about things that horrify us, and we destroy the things. When you write a thriller, you're destroying the things you love, and you're wrecking, and you're writing about your own secret terrors. So both of us are very claustrophobic, so a lot of our books, parts of them take place in caves or underground. We both love dogs, and that's why once in a while a dog is killed in our book. So
Figure that out.
And we love Savannah, and so that's why bad things happen to Savannah.
Yeah, he says the beautiful city of Savannah in Bloodless. It starts out beautiful, but by the end of the book, it's not quite so beautiful. But we're very glad you let us come back, and and you haven't pilloried us or ridden us out of town on a rail, and we're particularly proud. And I'm feeling a huge spasm of imposter syndrome right now that you let us be the keynote speakers tonight, because we don't deserve it, and it's really all you readers and fans and people who love books, not just ours, but all the books of all the authors who were here this weekend. So thank you all for coming and for letting us stand up here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to ask for some questions in a moment.
Well, we want to thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you so much to Douglas, Preston, and Lincoln Child. That was sensational. So, yes, in just a minute, we will be taking a few questions. But first, I'd like to present Lincoln and Douglas with these books as a token of our appreciation from the Savannah Book Festival.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, this is your book. Oh, this is very nice. This is beautiful.
So after the Q&A, Douglas and Lincoln will be signing festival purchased books at a table on the right side of the theater. Please make sure you've received a numbered signing card and line up according to your number on the left-hand side. So now we'll take some questions from the audience. If you'll please raise your hand, one of our volunteers will find you with a microphone. To maximize the number of questions that we have, that we can take in this brief time, please only ask one question, and let's save the storytelling for Douglas and Lincoln. So, who has a question? All right, one down right front.
Who does the most of the research for your books? Because they're very technical. They have a kind of heavy, wonky side to it. So, who does the wonky research in your books?
Did you say walking?
Wonky, W-O-N-K-Y, wonky.
A wonky, oh,
Sorry about
wonky
that.
research. Well, you know, both of us have interests. That, like, Lincoln knows all about computers and cryptology and archaeology and things like that. And I know about, other areas, mathematics, engineering, and cosmology and so forth. So those are areas that we tend to gravitate towards. But then when it comes to some specific research or historical research, Link is great with the historical research. And in this book, most of it takes place in 1880, and Link created a huge set of files for us to peruse. We put in Dropbox of photographs from New York City in 1880, the beautiful mansions along Fifth Avenue of the Gilded Age, the characters in New York in 1880, including one Edith Jones, who appears in our book. Does anyone know who Edith Jones was? She was 18 years old.
Very good. Who said that? 2 cigars for this gentleman.
Edith Wharton. But we don't say that in the book. We just have her as a character named Edith Jones, and only the most literate of our readers know.
That's very impressive. That's the first time anyone's answered that question.
Do we have another question? Have one in the back here? Yep.
One thing that we do in our books is we do a lot of research on subjects that interest us. Doug mentioned archaeology, and then we try very hard to bring that subject into the book. If it's Thunderhead, we talk about archaeology, about the Anasazi peoples. If it's Riptide, we talk about the Oak Island treasure and the engineering involved in getting at that gold. And having worked as an editor for 10 years, I know that it's very hard to do 2 years of research and then not pack it all into the book, because you think, I did 2 years of research, that the readers are going to damn well read every bit of it, you know, and that's not good. You want to keep just enough to keep them interested. So we try and put what interests us into our books, and that's what makes our research more interesting, to further answer your question.
My question is, your character Pendergast, did you base him on any specific person or combination of people that you had in mind, or is he purely fictitious?
You mean the suave, wealthy, handsome?
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mean, do I have to say, you know what I mean? No, we based him on nobody, but the question we are very frequently asked is, what actor could play him? And, what? Yes, that's Benedict Cumberbatch is a very common one. But you know, the funny thing is, over the years, one actor ages out and somebody else comes in. Like, when they first asked us this question, it was Rudolph Valentino, you know, and Ronald Colman, you know, and then Cary Grant. In more recent years, it's been like Christopher Walken and Benedict Cumberbatch, and Matthew McConaughey. So, as Doug explained, you know, Paramount has their foot on our head, and right now it's very interesting speculation, but it remains just speculation.
Yeah, I think that one of the things about Pendergast is that we gave him all the characteristics that we wished we had, but don't.
Do we have another question? We have one up in the balcony.
Yes, you mentioned Riptide, which I think was an excellent book and would make a fantastic movie if any.
It almost did.
Oh, it was. But Constance Green, and I'm sure you get asked this question all the time. Was there anyone in your lives that you based Constance on?
Constance Green.
Lincoln's in love with Constance Green.
I don't know if anybody who is quite as well read or as you know, obviously nobody is as old as she is, but is as well composed and as intelligent and as beautiful as Constance Green, except perhaps my daughter Veronica. Stand up, please. Stand up.
Yay, Veronica.
But thank you, Veronica.
She's so embarrassed.
Yeah, no,
Dad.
yeah, I'll never put that down. But she's a really interesting character. You know, she came out after Cabinet of Curiosities was written, and somebody gave us the idea for another person like Dr. Ling. I'll try and keep this short, but we decided Constance was too good a character not to put in the next book. But we sort of had to backfill her into Cabinet, so we stuck one sentence into the paperback. A pair of eyes following Pendergast down the hall. And we thought, no one's going to see this one sentence. And we got thousands of emails saying, what is that pair of eyes on the wall? But I really have the hots for Constance, and so I've made very careful as I can that she's so tightly wound into the story we're writing that she can't be extricated for a couple of books at least.
And also, I just wanted to follow up the movie. In the movie Relic, did any of the producers or directors, did they ask for your input on any part of the movie?
Well, it was kind of funny. They assigned us a producer or some kind of, assistant producer. And, they kept asking us for advice on the scripts. So we give them our notes, and nothing was ever done. And finally, I asked this person who was sort of our handler, I said, do they read our notes? Do they care? I mean, she said, frankly, no. She said, they're going to do whatever they want. That's the way it works. And, they don't really care. In fact, she said, to be honest with you, they don't want to know what the writers think, because they look on the writers as interfering and constantly trying to, protesting any changes that are made. So they really, right from the beginning, they discount any kind of input from the writers of the book.
There was only one question they asked us that I remember. The book takes place in the New York Museum, but the New York Museum, very short-sightedly, would have nothing to do with the film crew. They said, you can't film in here, this low budget, crass production, forget it. So the Field Museum in Chicago welcomed us with open arms, and they filmed the whole movie there. But there was a problem, because this big freighter that was supposed to wash up on the shore of New Jersey, now it had to wash up on the shore of Lake Superior, and it was kind of, the logistics were hard, and they asked us how to change that, but that was the only thing. Any other question?
Yeah, here.
Where are you disposal? Yes, go ahead. Yes.
The lost city of the monkey god, I say that you got it for sale out there. One of the most incredible books I've ever read. Could you just talk a little bit about the impetus for writing that?
The Lost City of the Monkey God. Yeah, that was one of I also write nonfiction for the New Yorker magazine and other magazines. And so I wrote a book about this discovery of a lost city in the jungles of Honduras. It's hard to believe that in the 21st century you could actually find a prehistoric city somewhere, but they did. And they did it using LIDAR, which is light detection and ranging. It's like radar, only it uses infrared light instead of radar and it can actually map the ground under the thickest jungle cover. And so in 2012, they found this city in this area of Honduras called the Mesquite region, which is one of the last unexplored places on Earth. And then in 2015, I was part of all these expeditions, and in 2015, we went in and explored the lost city. And I wrote a book about it called The Lost City of the Monkey God.
And it was a #1 bestseller, too. Congratulations.
Yes. Yeah, she...
That's what I don't get. Have more roots for the snakes.
Yeah, she was not happy that I was going back. 2/3 of the expedition got ill with a really dangerous tropical disease called leishmaniasis, which is incurable. And you have to stay back about 15 feet from me.
Yeah, don't shake his hand when you're getting your book signed.
You have to dip the book in bleach after I signed it. No, just kidding. But no, it's like malaria. But transmitted by the bite of a sandfly instead of a mosquito. And then we had fer-de-lance, snakes, and it was rain and mud up to our waists. I mean, it was unbelievably crazy. And it was so remote that the animals had never seen people. They just walked right up to you, including the mountain lions, the pumas, and jaguars. It was really scary.
A new delicacy, yeah, they never seen it before, yeah.
You hear them roaring at night outside our tent, or purring, and the purring of a jaguar is really something to hear. It's not pleasant.
I think we have time for one more question. Is there anybody who wants to ask anything?
Up here.
Yes.
I had a question. Why have you decided to bring back Diogenes? I thought you had killed him off.
Is that clapping because we brought him back, or because you sympathize with the questioner? We brought him back, you mean in the newest book? Oh, you mean the spoiler at the end of the book, okay. Well, we didn't actually kill him off. We left him sort of, he walked away with his tail between his legs. And we didn't plan for him to come back, but this book, as so often happens with our books, took on a life of its own and kept on unspooling and unspooling to the point where we ended up, where we had to write another book. And people are very mad at us because I think that this was, I know.
Yeah, how many?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I humble myself before you. It was really not intentional.
We are getting, even my friends are furious at the ending of that book.
But we didn't do it intentionally. It's just, the same thing happened with Brimstone. But at the end of this book, we've realized we'd written ourselves into a corner, and only someone like Diogenes could extricate our characters. And now we are stuck writing the next book. You think that was hard, wait till you see this one. Jesus Christ. We have like the 4 biggest characters in our novels in the same room at the beginning of the book. And we're juggling an ensemble cast, and you can see the deathly pallor on our faces just from working on it day in and day out. But thank you all very much. You've been a great audience.
Thank you, Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. And thank you for being with us tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow in the squares.